not believe we're doing this just for the windows and the views today.
Oh, this is important.
What a good idea.
Got that, Izzy?
Hey,
Oh,
Tony,
yeah.
did you check the weather? Because karma is going to kill us if this rains.
It looks like
today.
rain.
We're good for 4 hours. 4 hours easy.
Are you serious? Okay.
This is
This
really
is expensive.
critical. You know, when people buy a new home, they want to know what they're going to be looking at. So the view is critical. Makes windows very important.
Oh, this is going to be a great show. All right, I think we have a couple things
Yep,
to get
let's go
ready
get-
for open.
All right, let's do it. Guys, move it a little bit more to the left. Okay, that's great. You know, putting windows in homes is really, really critical. We've been putting windows in homes since the 17th century. Back then, it was just merely a hole in the wall, and the wind would come through the hole. Wind, hole, you get it?
Oh,
We get the word window.
ventilation.
Well, that was the two purposes of a window, was for ventilation and for light. And so when we think of the history of the window, we start to see things like animal skins and different things like that were used on the windows. Then they had the shutters so that the windows could open and close for some privacy, and then also still let the light and ventilation come through, till we made our way all the way to actual glass windows, which is much more what we see today.
Yeah, and windows are the only architectural feature that you can see from the inside and outside. So it's extremely important to get them placed right, proportionally right, for that visual effect.
That's right. Your window placement is an important part of the design puzzle. If you concentrate solely on the interior placement, the exterior is really going to suffer in design.
Yeah, Elizabeth, it really is. So the scale, the style, and especially the rhythm of that window placement determines the personality of any home. And so we're going to be talking about that today a little bit. So Lonnie, would you go ahead and open up?
Yeah, hey, welcome to Between the Studs. I'm Lonnie Norris, and this is part of the Granite Ridge Builders team, including Tony Ranke, our president. We've been building custom homes now for about 17 years in northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and also parts of southern Michigan. We like what we're doing. We like sharing with you a lot of the things that are involved in our business. Thanks for joining us today on a very exciting show, I think.
Oh, as we said, windows are probably one of the most important architectural features of any home. They've been getting bigger, they've been getting smaller. We're going to do a lot of discussion today about styles. We're going to describe all the nomenclatures and parts and pieces about windows. Well, I think the audience is going to find this really, really interesting. So let's break off, pick your part and piece that you like the best, and let's go for it. Let's do it.
Six, 9. All right.
Tony, you
3, 6.
are always doing weird things, but there's usually a method behind your madness. What exactly are you doing?
I'm really measuring out where the back of the house is going to be. I'm
Okay.
showing where the edge is, and right here will be where the back patio is going to be.
Okay.
So where you're standing at is almost going to be where the window is going to be at in the kitchen.
All right, so we're trying to imagine here. That's why I've kind of got this guy here, so we can actually just try to look through, get an idea of what that picture might look like.
You're pretty close, Izzy, but remember, we always have to build the houses up a little bit. That's why I have the ladder out here.
I should have known. All right,
All
well,
right,
let's
let's
give
try
that a
this
shot.
again.
Okay.
So now, if you look out that window picture frame here, you're going to get a good idea what your view of your home's going to be.
And this is what it's going to look like.
That's fantastic, Izzy. Hold it there. I'm going to grab the camera, and I'm going to take a picture of it so I can send it to the clients.
Oh, that's great thinking, Tony.
And got it.
Okay, we showed you a home with a window hole where the window is to be placed. Now we have placed the window in the hole, and I have taped it up. It's very important that we tape around these windows. Right, Luke?
It is important. You taped this one up, Lonnie?
I sure did.
Well, A for effort, but it's extremely important during this phase of the construction to really be concerned about rainwater and water
Yes.
management. This top piece here, you had close, but really the house wrap should overlap this. You always want to think of the water
This stuff
shingling
here
to the
should
outside.
go over the top.
Yep, just on the outside. So that way it shingles itself away from the window.
We'll
right now,
change that.
water could get potentially behind. It's important, our framers all know, to get that right, and then also to make sure this window is nice and square in here. If you've ever had a window that's always been real tough to open, chances are that window wasn't square to begin with, and it's sitting in there a little whopper job.
Man, there's a lot to think about when you frame in a window. Let's take a look on the inside.
Yeah, let's go.
Earlier in the show, we talked about windows being the one component that you see both on the outside of the home as well as the inside. Very critical that we get them in the right place and the right window. In this segment, we want to talk about what's going on the inside of a home that's been framed. It took us about 7 or 8 days to get this home framed. That includes putting on the shingles, installing the doors, and the windows. Let's look at this window and some of the components that make up a framed window.
Right, and anytime we add a window to a wall, it adds a lot of extra framing pieces that go to it. So why don't we just start at the top and kind of work our way down, Lonnie.
Okay.
So at the very top, right before the ceiling joist, you have a double top plate.
I can see that.
So that double top plate does a couple things. It adds a little bit more ceiling height for you, but then it also adds some structural integrity because you can overlap those top plates whenever you get to an intersecting wall.
Okay. And then the
then
studs?
just below that we have cripple studs or crip studs. So those are shortened studs because then we actually have to take into account the window. So right below those crip studs is the header that runs across that window. The header's purpose is to disperse the weight of the roof and any other members away from that window.
Okay,
the window,
and typically the header would be insulated, is that fair to say?
Insulated up to 6 foot.
Okay.
So anything over 6 foot that we have to span just goes to a double 2x12, 2x10 header. But the header is just meant to get that weight off of the window. We don't want any weight on that window.
To disperse it to the sides, okay?
Yep, correct. Then you actually get to the window itself. So you have the window frame and the jamb that's sitting there. And you can see a little bit of gap between the window and the header and the wood. That's going to get insulated with a low foam or low expansion insulation.
Okay.
Now if we're looking to the left and right, you can see that there's 3 studs sandwiched together.
Okay.
There's 2 different types of studs there. We have the first 2 are the trimmer studs.
Okay, maybe the trimmer would be nailing into those, hopefully?
Yep.
With
So
this casing?
we're going to talk about casing later. So the casing actually gets nailed into those, and it picks up the load from the header. So it gets it down onto the foundation. Then the furthest stud out there is called the king stud. So that's the king stud that actually runs all the way from the bottom plate to the top plate and ties all of that unit in together. So that ties the trimmer studs with the header into the plates. Now, Lonnie, right below the window, we get back into some more cripple studs like we had above the window. Still 16-inch on center, so the drywall guys can maintain their spacing. Then the last piece is the bottom plate, which is treated with borate. And then there's a triple sealing protection. So we have seal sealer, which is like a foam underneath that. And then there's silicone underneath that. And then lastly, some silicone all the way around the edge. That way, any air infiltration or any insects can't get through that.
Quite a bit involved in framing in a window. Hey, let's go take a look at a window that's been finished on the outside. Before we talk about the basic parts and pieces of a window, I got a quiz for you, Luke. What came first, the casement window or the double hung?
Well, my brain wants to say the double hung.
Wrong. A double hung window is actually more complicated. There's more pieces to it. And remember maybe 50 years ago, I remember 50 years ago, man, those old double hung were dangerous. They had all kinds of pieces, and if the balls inside broke, they would slam down, hit your fingers, break the glass. Not a good window, actually.
Well, now, Lonnie, let's talk about the actual parts and pieces of this window. In a previous segment, we already showed you that the framing members were there ready for this window to be installed. So let's pick it up from there.
Okay. Let's talk about maybe the frame of the window.
Yeah, so the frame of the window, which is this piece right here, has a nailing flange around it. Our nailing flange is continuous nailing flange, and that gets attached to some of those stud members we talked about, like the king studs on the outside. Then we have to tape the window and put this J-channel, so that way we're constantly managing the water or the rain that's going to hit this window, keeping it from getting to the inside.
Critical that a window have a flange around it, a tight flange to keep the water away again, right?
Yep, right, and it all plays into part in keeping that water out. So this here is called a sill.
This is the sill.
Yep, the sill of the window. So that's actually slanted ever so slightly, so if water gets behind the sash of the window here, it's going to run to the outside. Sometimes you've seen where you got a brick or a stone sill here. So if we have a brick house, and you see the brick is always at a slight angle, again, keeping that water going to the outside of the house.
What do we call the frame of the window itself?
The frame is actually the sash. The part that actually holds the glass or the glazing is the sash. That's the window sash. So it's the mechanism that actually swings out in a casement window.
So 3 main parts, the sill, the sash, and the glazing or the glass. Now let's go inside and talk about what it looks like on the inside. Well, Luke and I were outside. Now we're inside looking at this double casement window, and we want to talk about the parts and pieces that make up the window, the part that you're going to see from the inside of the home.
Yeah, you want to start on the outside and kind of work our way
Let's
in,
do
Lonnie?
it. Let's do it.
So on the outside, you actually have casing. There's two different ways typically to case a window.
Okay.
This is more of a traditional where it's picture framed. In this case, we have some dog ears here.
A 1x4, sometimes we call it a ranch trim. And what's the dog ear referred to?
The dog ear refers to this little part that extends past that 1x4, just giving it a little extra dimension.
Sometimes we use the 1x4, sometimes a colonial casing or other products.
Right.
What's the other way to do it?
The second way would be a stool and apron, where you still might have the 1x4s come down, but then the difference is down here at the bottom, there's a stool that sticks out and then an apron that butts up underneath that, giving it a little bit more depth here. A lot of times cats like this thing, or potted plants.
Okay, they can sit there. And so this is the sill.
Yep.
But you can put a stool, kind of make it into a stool.
Right, so this is the window sill like we talked about on the outside. That
Okay.
one on the outside is slightly angled. This is more flat because we're not worried about water on the interior. Then on the side here you have the window jamb, and then you got the window stops that go around where the window actually closes.
Okay. This particular window cranks out.
Yep, like you mentioned, it's a casement, so it cranks out. Again, you know, today the wind's blowing this direction, so you can feel a nice cool breeze coming through here. And it cranks out pretty far, Lonnie, about 70 degrees, so it opens up a lot of window there.
You know, for $400, it's quite a value to put an incredible window like this in. And how are you going to clean it? Some people say, how do you know, casement windows are tough to clean, but this window, we got a way to do it?
Right, Anderson has a very neat trick here. Now, on 2 stories, or even when we build the house and the yard's not quite established yet, there's actually a double arm here. So I showed you, it was fully opened at about 70 degrees. Then this arm here, you push that out, and now you can open up a full 90 degrees, allowing you to actually get your arm back here and be able to wipe down the outside of that window.
No more excuses. I think I can even get my arm outside there.
Yep, now we got to clean these up. The girls were mentioning about how dirty they were, so I think you got some Windex over there. I'll take care of this one, you take care of that one.
Actually, mine looks pretty good.
Specialty windows are always a fun topic to talk to our homeowners about. When we say specialty, we mean different shapes and sizes, such as a trapezoid, a half circle, an elliptical window.
There's quite a few different examples, and figuring out where you're going to use those can really have a dramatic effect and impact on the room where you put those in.
For example, in our area, in the Fort Wayne area, you see a lot of elliptical windows. One place you could put those is above your front door, maybe above some bedrooms that are facing the front of the house, so you get a dramatic effect from the curb and from the interior of the home.
I think also in Fort Wayne, Elizabeth, we see a lot of like right triangle and trapezoid windows. A lot of times you'll see those more towards the rear of the home because of the impact they might have on the look from the outside. We like those because you can get those higher and they let in a lot more natural light into the room.
Another window we see is a trefoil or a quatrefoil window.
Yeah, a lot of our viewers at home, Elizabeth, have probably seen examples of those windows in old churches. So a lot of those are stained glass windows. I love stained glass for a couple different reasons. They have a couple different patterns, and they also have tracery windows, which is almost like branch-like windows up at the top. We used to use stained glass windows to tell stories. A lot of folks weren't able to read in olden times, and that was how they were able to communicate with people that were attending the church.
We're even seeing people use stained glass today because a lot of times if they're doing a specific style in their home, the stained glass really lends well to that style. One of my favorites is a house we just finished. This had a really dramatic window in the back. We had a parallelogram, we had a right triangle, we had a trapezoid, and a picture window, all incorporated in the back of this home.
Yeah, we typically see those towards the rear of the home because we're doing some different things with roof lines. We do more cathedral or vaulted ceilings back there, which gives us a larger wall to do some additional windows.
The other thing is when it comes to windows, we're seeing windows in areas that in the past we would have never thought to put a window there, such as a bathroom, a closet, even a garage.
Yeah, I think the one room where we're seeing them more and more is in the kitchen. People are actually eliminating upper cabinetry and doing big banks of windows to allow a lot more natural light as they're working in the kitchen space.
And with those windows, we're seeing big picture windows, so they don't even open. People aren't as concerned as letting in the fresh air. They maybe have allergies or they just like the air conditioning, so we're seeing a lot of big picture windows.
And when folks are doing that, Elizabeth, we typically think of windows with muttons or grills in them, which can be a nice look from the outside, but as you're looking inside out, it obstructs the view. So people are doing away with muttons or grills. They're even taking those screens out altogether, so you have a nice clear view looking outside that window.
There are so many window choices today, and there's more than we've ever had in the past. So please come out and talk to us. We'd love to talk about the windows in your next home.
Yeah, Tony's going to give us the opportunity to take a look at this blueprint and figure out where these windows are going to go.
Oh, not a problem.
I can't believe you and I are going to get to do this.
Okay.
One thing that we talk about in almost every episode of Between the Studs is how we're bringing the outdoor in more and more because people want to enjoy that outdoor living space. One big way to take care of that is actually through your windows and through your doors to get to the outside itself. They keep getting bigger and bigger.
So we do that as well with our sliding doors here. 6-foot sliders are what we start with standard. You can go a little bit smaller, but we really prefer not to do that. And what we're doing most often now is actually increasing from 6-foot to 8-foot sliding doors.
And we can take that 8-foot wide. We can also take that 8-foot high. That way you can even get more and more of that natural light in. Also makes it a lot easier to take patio furniture in and out.
Makes it much easier, and the view is undeniable. It also allows us to skip that tempered window feel that sometimes can be there with this glass slider. It's just tough on its own.
But one thing that we did find out the last time we went up to Anderson Windows is there's a way that you can actually get 16 or 24-foot slider doors, and we have this in this new model in Saddle Creek. You need to take this out. It's really taking the inside out and the outside in. Let's take a look at this.
I tell you, you can't fit furniture through this.
Elizabeth, you and I both love architectural styles. We love defining them, what they are, the fronts of them, but we're talking today about windows, and windows can be one of the most important elements to define those architectural styles. Now, I think you've got a new brochure that we just picked up that can give our audience a little bit better idea what windows and architectural styles have in common.
These are great books. Anderson gave these to us. So you can see the different styles. Here I have an international modern home. We don't see a lot of these in Fort Wayne because most of them have a flat roof, which just doesn't do well in Fort Wayne. But the window pattern in a home like this, usually they're in groupings. So square and rectangular windows in groupings. And the homes are very simple. There's no ornamentation on them.
Yeah, now I've got one here that is a Georgian or Federal style. This was one of the most popular styles between 1880 and around 1960. We even call them Neo-Georgian style today. But as you can see, they have the 4 or 5 rank windows at the top and they're mimicked below. This is called the Georgian style. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the grid pattern, also the windows. In this case, they're double hung or single casement windows, but they do have the transoms up above.
Now, one of our favorite styles is the prairie home. I know this is near and dear to your heart because you love Frank Lloyd Wright.
I do.
So he is best known for the prairie style home. These homes are very long or wide, and they have a low roof pitch, so they're very low. One thing that defines them is their window style. So you'll see a lot of transom windows, you'll see a lot of stained glass like we talked about earlier, but they basically flow into the earth. So a lot of times they're built right into the ground.
Here's another one that I think is coming back a lot, and we call this the porch style, the Queen Anne style. Also, they call it the picturesque style. But this is a very unique pattern also. Normally these are double hung windows, but the grid pattern is something that you can define these windows with.
One popular style that's been around a long time and really has had a comeback in Fort Wayne is the craftsman style or the bungalow home. This home has big gables, you've got a lot of transom windows, double hung windows. You'll always see grid patterns in this home as well. Also the colors, so you'll see some colored windows. You might see green, you might see red in this particular home style.
Yeah, and a lot of these colors are coming back from the past. So here's an interesting style, the Tudor home. You don't see it as much today, but it is making a comeback. It's got the stucco styles, the half timber look, but then also, as she said, the grill pattern is similar to some of the others, and also the diamond grills, which is, by the way, very, very expensive, but very unique.
And then lastly, we have the American farmhouse style. This again is a popular style. You'll see double hung windows. Most of these are alone, so they're not grouped with other windows as you can see here. Again, these have the grid style as well, and just about any color. You'll notice a lot of these homes are white, and then they may put a little punch of color with the windows.
And if you just look behind us, this is a really, really good modern version of that farmhouse style. So if you'd like to know a little bit more information about the architectural styles, what the windows and what they can mean in the front of a home, please give us a call.
Luke, as we talk about windows today, there's one main component to that window we haven't touched on yet, and that's the actual glass part of the window. The majority of our glass comes from Cardinal Glass, and we were lucky enough to tour that facility, and getting to see them make glass is a pretty cool process. There's two main types of glass that we're going to use. We're going to use annealed, or also known as ordinary glass. We're also going to use tempered glass in some different areas.
Yeah, now let's talk about tempered for a second. So we have a lot of areas in our houses that require tempered glass. That'd be if any window is too close to the ground within 18 inches, patio doors, anytime there's a window in a staircase, any side lights or windows in a door or around a door, the microwaves, ovens, there's lots of places where there's glass that needs to be tempered. So tempered is actually a process of taking regular glass and taking it a step further and going through a very high heating process. So they actually heat this glass up to over 1100 degrees, and then they cool it very, very rapidly, which actually creates some tension within the glass itself. The outer surface cools down much quicker than the inner surface, creating tiny little fractures, I guess you could call it. So that way, if there was ever a chance that that glass would break, from a safety standpoint, that glass would be tiny little shards, which wouldn't cause massive damage, as opposed to glass like this that would maybe break in large pieces, potentially cutting or hurting anybody that's in that area.
Absolutely. So Luke, we've done a lot of shows. We've been able to do a lot of Between the Studs episodes, and I gotta tell you, I'm really excited. I think more excited than I've ever been for what's gonna happen next. We're gonna get a chance to show folks what happens when you break a pane of ordinary or annealed glass, and also what it looks like when you break tempered,
Yeah,
correct?
the best way to show it is to actually show them how it's done. So
Thank goodness.
let's break some glass.
Let's go do this.
Tony, several times today we've talked about that windows are so important because not only do you see them on the outside of the house, but you also see them from the inside. And it brings up one of my favorite words in construction, fenestration.
Gesundheit.
Thank you very much. Fenestration is actually the placement of windows. So we're trying to find out where you can place windows, where you shouldn't place windows. So Tony, I'd like us to address a little bit some of the do's and don'ts about window placement.
You know, that is a big thing, because sometimes if you make a small error when it comes to the windows, it can really affect the way your entire house looks. So we're gonna hit the don'ts, but right now one of the do's is when you're looking at a door and you're having the side light windows on there, you wanna make sure that those side light windows are not wider than what the door is itself. You've got a 3-foot door, so you wanna make sure your side lights are no bigger than 12 inches on each side.
As we look at this home as well, we can see that we've made some smaller windows over here in the closet. What that allows us to do is give a little bit of privacy in that closet space, with still giving us that light that we care for. The biggest thing that we did that made it a correct thing, though, was to make sure that the trim actually was the same height all the way across, keeping those windows with the same height of the placement.
One thing that can sometimes be overlooked in it is when you're talking about architectural design, you're always talking about rhythm, and you're talking about style, and you're talking about how everything comes together. And one part of that is making sure that your weight is good on the homes. You want to make sure that you do not have a larger window on a second story than what you have on the main story. And one thing that I see a lot is where people are putting windows above their front doors, where the window above the front door is actually bigger than the door itself, and it throws off that weight and balance.
Windows should always go smaller in size the higher up you go. So you'd have a certain size here, you can do the same size or smaller, and then continuing on upwards. And of course, when you get to the back, top of it, and you get these gables, a lot of times we do even smaller windows for a little bit of an accent.
So sometimes if you're looking at a house and you're not quite sure why you like it or why you don't like it, take a really good close look at the windows and see how the sizing and the weight of those goes, because that may be your solution.
As we talk about windows today, we've mentioned that we are a proud partner of Andersen Windows, and we typically use their 400 series product. There are some really big advantages to this window that we're going to cover here in this segment. So it starts out with an all-wood sash that they have coated in vinyl, and it is really amazing to see how they make this window. They melt down the vinyl and shoot that wood membrane through it and coat it in a single layer, so there's no way any moisture can hit and land on that wood sash.
So beyond the great construction of this window, there are 4 key parts that make this a high energy efficiency window. The first being that it's a double pane window. We've got argon gas inside there. Argon gas is an insulator, so it makes the window 41% more efficient during the winter, 37% more efficient during the summer.
And when you look at glass, Izzy, through a microscope, it appears flat when you look at it here. As a microscope, it's very lunar looking, so it's not flat at all. So they actually, Andersen will put a coating called titanium dioxide on the outside of this window. And what that does is it allows dirt to sheet off of the outside of that window 99% of the time. So you'll have to clean the outer edge of that window a lot less.
The third component is our low E film, and the low E film tries to keep the heat on the right side of the window. So during the winter, the sun is at a lower angle, and so it tries to keep the heat on the inside of the window. During the summer, the sun is up higher in the sky, and it tries to reflect the heat to keep the heat on the outside of the window.
And Andersen does one other thing that I really appreciate with their windows. Obviously, as we're in the construction site, Izzy, it can be messy. It can be dirty. There's stuff flying. So they put a protective coating on the outside of this window that can stay on during construction. And then as the house is completed, pull it off to make sure there's no damage under that window during construction.
Now, we've talked about this Andersen 400 series. We do offer one other window here that is a great upgrade, and this one is a gelled-win triple pane window. So here, instead of the double pane, there are 3 panes of glass in here, and we add an extra gas that is a krypton gas. Has nothing to do with Superman, but it is a krypton gas, and those 2 gases working together make it an even more efficient window.
So we have an ultra energy efficient window. We have a tough, rigid, and durable window, but it's actually a decorative element now for the homes too. So they've now incorporated a lot of different colors to go along with these windows. At Granite Ridge Builders, we offer 6 different colors that come standard. There's also a few others to choose from.
So as you're choosing which windows are going to look best for your house, not only do we have selections when it comes to color and style, but we also have one of the best energy efficient windows out there on the market.
This is so important, Tony, to
do
be able to
think it
hold
looks
up
like
the
a
frame
episode.
and
Tony
picture
promised.
No, those look like thunderclouds. Thunderclouds.
He promised.
You can see
Beautiful,
down.
beautiful.
It's gonna rain again.
This is a really good show.
us it would.
It's a good show.
This has been a great show, folks, and we've had a great time, and I can see so much more clearly now that we know so much more about windows. So whether we're using single hung, double hung, casement, or the more specialty windows like the trapezoids, parallelograms, all the great things that we can do in windows nowadays, we can do any window that you need for your home.
As always, guys, I want to thank you for spending part of your day with us. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do so well, please just pick up the phone, give us a call, visit the website below. Even better yet, come in the front door. We'd love to meet you and talk about windows. And guys, we are so proud to feature Andersen Windows, who's America's most recognized brand in windows.
Yeah, and Jared, that's a partnership I'm really proud of. You and I had the opportunity to tour their plant where we got to see all of the attention to detail and the quality that goes into every window. And you know, that's where we found that 16-foot slider.
Lightning!
Oh man!
Thunder.
Come on!
I know! I never trust Tony Debker's weather forecast.
Oh, come out, man!
See you guys!
Get me out of here!
I'm leaving!
My hair!
Oh no, you know how you're gonna pay for this, Tony.
myself.
Grab the couch, Elizabeth.
The weather's fine. We got no worries at all for at least 4 hours.
Okay, let's get ready for the open.
right,
That didn't go real well.
Hey, by the way, I heard thunder. We've been putting windows in new homes since the 17th century. Oh, sorry.
Rats!
Tony,
No.
Tony.
What was that?
That was the weakest thunder I've ever heard.
Sissiest one I've ever heard in my life.
I'm like looking at her trying to cue her this.
No.